Paul Metsa's Wall of Power TV is brought to you in part by Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation, Two Gingers Irish Whiskey, Grey Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods, and the Solar Arts Building in Northeast Minneapolis.
Wall of Power TV's on the road. We're in Woodbury with two of my favorite guitar players that were kind enough to take time after a rockin' show last night at the Hook and Ladder to talk with me. A cat I've been listening to for years, David Grissom. I've heard you in a variety. I've heard you with Joe Wheely at the Crest Hotel one night, about 2 in the morning. That was a beautiful show. Yeah. And Greg Koch, who was in town at the Lower Town Guitar Festival a couple years ago, who we haven't met, but we chatted on the phone.
Yes, indeed.
So tell us a little, we're going to talk guitars. You and I, Greg, were talking about the beauty of the Telecaster.
Yes.
Let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, actually, this kind of came up in our workshop yesterday, and I gravitated to the Telecaster initially only because it was the only Fender guitar that was available to me, you know, and I was young, I was 16, and I wanted a Strat, but a Tele was available because I wanted that neck pickup sound. But what happened was the utility of it and everything about it, it just became kind of my go-to instrument for many years. And then I went far afield playing this, that, the next thing. But then when I just said, you know what, I'm done screwing around. For my music, for what I do, for, you know, when I'm doing my band, the Telecaster, because it's just a simple instrument. Right. You know, it's very primal. I like to say at the end of time, there will be cockroaches and there will be Telecasters. And the Telecasters will be in tune.
And Keith Richards playing one.
Exactly.
David, what was your first guitar?
My first guitar was some sort of $50, I mean, like a Harmony that I took lessons at the mall in Louisville, Kentucky, and I rented some sort of Stella or Harmony that was impossible to play, but my first good guitar was a Fender Mustang.
Okay.
And in competition orange with white racing stripes.
Oh, cool.
But I mean, like Greg, I you know, sort of worked my way to, I did, when I was 16, there was in Louisville where I grew up, there was a thing called the Bargain Mart. And, you know, we'd get it like when it came out on Wednesday, and it just said Les Paul. And I had a broken leg at the time, and I got my father to drive me across the river to like New Albany, Indiana, and it was a 52 Les Paul, and it was $275, which I didn't have, and he loaned me the money, and I had that for a long time. But you know, I started listening to Roy Buchanan. I got into his first 2 records heavily, and Albert Collins, and then my dad listened to Waylon Jennings a lot, and then like, you know, that Wayne Moss solo on Only Daddy That'll Walk the Line, and all those things. And I really gravitated towards the Tele too. I would stare at the old Fender ad that advertised the broadcaster.
Right.
I'm gonna just stare at it.
Right.
Just stare at it. And then the back of the Roy Buchanan second album where he's sitting in his living room with a pipe next to him, and he's got that 53 Tele that's been nicotined to within an inch of its life, you know, and I mean, like, I gotta have that. And so the first year I was with Mellencamp after Ely, I was down in Tampa. And there's a store down there, Thoroughbred? Tampa. And I didn't have a whole lot of time, and I played some guitars, and I look up on the top shelf, and there's I now know it's a 52 Tele, and it looked exactly like Roy's. And I didn't have time to even get it down. But I went home and called, you know, had a friend there that helped me, and I worked out a deal. I bought the guitar without playing it. I never played it. I just looked at it and I knew that was the one. And I got it home and I plugged it in, and like I went, you know, I had a Fender Vibrolux, Blackface Vibrolux, and it was on the neck pickup at the time, and I turned it on, had the reverb on, and I put the switch to the bridge position, and I heard this, you know, this beautiful quack.
Yeah.
Just like you hear Roy Buchanan when he's turning, and I knew I'd gotten the right guitar.
Cool.
And so that, you know, I got a 52 Telecaster for about 5% of what they cost now.
Right.
And I still have it.
Oh, cool.
So, you know,
what happened oh, go ahead.
To me, a Tele is like the perfect classic American guitar. Now, when I pick up a Strat, I play like somebody else. They're so idiomatically, I get into this neck pickup Strat thing or the two pickup thing, and I automatically start playing like somebody else.
Right.
Whereas the Tele to me is just a meat and potatoes.
Blank canvas.
So, and then the PRS thing, when I got the Ely gig, it really to me it was just like sort of like a Tele on steroids.
Right.
And it's this, you know, the model that I helped them design. It has the same aesthetics to me as a Telecaster, even though it's humbucking pickups. Right. It's got the meat and potato, you know, it's just, I don't know. But you're right, like cockroaches and Telecasters, and the Telecaster being too at the end when the earth is like leveled. Hi, this is the new Jetter Grissom Overdrive pedal. 3-knob pedal, level, drive, and contour. Contour just being the overall high-end response. It's a really, really, really musical pedal. So the amp is my PRS DG Custom 30, set up to crunch a little bit when I hit it hard. It's turned up to about 6. It's crunching pretty good. The speaker cabinet's in the other room. Here's the pedal on.
Well, I've always said that the 3 iconic American inventions that were perfect right out of the box were Marlboro Reds, bottle of Coca-Cola, and a Telecaster.
Yeah.
I put Levi's in there too.
Levi's would be number 4. I'm going to add that to my rap.
I mean,
to my bar.
although it's sad, you know, the plant that made all the denim that we grew up was in North Carolina, Cone Mills Denim, and they just shut it down.
Oh, that's sad.
Well, I wish our president would save that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, so now they're all made in China and stuff, but.
Well, and the other thing, you know, Gibson Guitars is going into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
The Guitar Center is you know, in financial straits. You know, we grew up at a time, I think we're probably all pretty much the same age, when that's, you know, you saw the Beatles or I saw Elvis at the World's Fair, and somebody played a guitar and that's what you wanted to do. And now there's not, you know, the youngins coming up, they want their laptops and their Beats.
Although it's interesting, you know, David and I were talking. I mean, there are young guitar players that are on Instagram that are insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of guys playing.
They really irritate me, frankly. they're really they're really good. There are a bunch of guys that are playing their ass off right now.
I just think it's different. I mean, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like the Gibson thing is kind of interesting because Gibson itself is actually doing very well. It's his other business ventures that are bleeding him dry. Okay. But like Gibson Custom, I mean, I do a lot of these videos out at this store in Colorado, Wildwood, and they sell guitars all day long. I mean, expensive stuff. Their business is just going. So, is it different from when it was when we were growing up? Absolutely. But I mean, there's more people. There's more people with guitars than ever before. Right. probably more people play. And certainly it's the golden era of learning stuff. I mean, you can go, remember when we were young, as I'm sure we can all identify
you put
with.
the record on, you learned about that much.
The needle, it was just picking up the needle. But the thing about that was you're developing your ear.
That's true.
Right.
And you're really having to hunt. And then by the time you're done, you know the song. I mean, you learn, it's not like it's committed to memory as opposed to watching it on YouTube. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to get that lick I want. And then you don't really know the song.
Right. Although by the same token, it's like, remember we read something in Guitar Player magazine, like, I was really into Jimmy Bryant, and you're like, where am I going to find a Jimmy Bryant record? Whereas now, it's like you can read any obscure reference, go on YouTube, and not only if someone at least posted the audio of these iconic records, or else you can actually see footage of these people. So it's like...
Yeah, it is amazing.
It's insane. I was reading this Django Reinhardt book, and they were mentioning all these obscure people that he was influenced by, and all these musette bands, and so on and so forth. I just have my computer right there. I was like, who's this guy? Right. There it is. You know what I mean?
There is a real beauty in that. Especially that, I recently saw that, and I'm sure you've seen it, that Django playing along, he's smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
With 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Who was, David, I'll ask you first, who were some of your first big guitar influences?
Initially it was Keith Richards and Hendrix. And like the first song I learned how to play was Sympathy for the Devil, the live version of Get Your Yachts Out.
Yes.
Your mother loved that.
Well, to be honest, my mother died when I was 10 years old, and I was playing drums at that point, and she wasn't wild about that. But after she passed, I started playing guitar. About 12-ish, and my dad was cool about it. He was really cool about it, and so the Keith Richards and Hendrix, and then this kind of follows the progression of sort of guitar teachers, like the guy in the neighborhood, then the guy in the next neighborhood, then the guy at the music store. That from there on to B.B. King, Magic Sam, Butterfield, that stuff, and then the next guy was when we opened the book and we started writing stuff. We started learning about major seventh chords, as we talked about yesterday, which I didn't even know what major seventh. I mean, Anyway, that Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell. I mean, I was initially attracted to the jazz guys that were sort of a little more blues based. Grant Green, Kenny Burrell, and Joe Pass. I loved, but it was Wes, and and then mixed in with all that, I was really into Doc Watson and Norman Blake.
Oh, love those guys.
And there was a lot of bluegrass going on around where I was from. And Norman Blake, I think, to this day, I'm just in awe of. And I hear, like in stuff that I do, on electric with even overdriven tone, I can trace back to Norman Blake, and he would be appalled that I was even invoking his name with that tone. He's the most traditional, kind of. But I love. He's like a time warp, but I just love the way he plays. So that, and then
and that tune, Old Brown Case.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And the record I got that I wore out was Whiskey Before Breakfast. And he's on the front cover. And he's playing an old Martin D18, and like the Telecaster on the back of the Roy Buchanan record, I had a lifelong quest for that guitar, and I found it at Carter's Vintage in Nashville.
Nice.
And they had like 6 pre-war D18s, and they ranged from reasonably cheap by most standards for an old D18 to $60,000.
Wow.
I played all 6 of them. The one that sounded the best by far was the cheap one. That's the one I bought. We had a new fretboard on it. It had been, 20 repaired body cracks, a neck headstock break and everything, and it blew them all away. So I got it. But that record was like on the back. Nancy, his wife, talks, the liner notes are like, the engineer's Sundance ate a lot of peanut butter and dates. And, Norman played his D18 strung, 10 to 54 or whatever. It was just like Rounder Records, the good old, like when they made a record for $3,000 in an afternoon. That record, and it's funny because, album covers, the mystery of all you have is like the front and the back of the album cover, and when you go see somebody or they come to town, I wonder if they're going to have that guitar. I wonder, I was like, your imagination gets involved.
Absolutely.
Greg, what was your first guitar?
First guitar was an acoustic. I had a paper route, and I saved up, and I got an Applause acoustic, which was like the entry level Ovation.
Right.
And but I grew up. I was the youngest of 7 kids, and my brother was the oldest, and there were 5 girls in between. So I had to room with my brother, who was 14 years older than I was. So he'd listen to Cream, he'd listen to Hendrix, and Beatles and the Stones. But it was a power trio room.
Yeah.
We lived in. It was James Gang, Hendrix, and Cream. Right.
And
power trio room, I like that.
And I had this weird fascination with Hendrix very early. I just thought he was a god. It was like, who's this? He's from outer space, And I remember when I was a kid, and I'd take naps, and my sister, you got to take a nap now. I'd go, put on that orange record, and I'd hear Up From the Skies and all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned Hendrix in the West yesterday.
Yeah,
that was one of the first ones for me. Oh, that was huge,
glorious
for me.
That was when that version of Red House on there continues.
And Voodoo Child too is really great.
Stellar. But yeah, that was what I wanted to play. But back then the methodology is, you have to start an acoustic. You can't just get an electric right away.
Exactly.
Right.
In the Mel Bay book.
Exactly. And so my dad was.
Or Nick Maniloff. Remember him? That was one of the first guitar books too.
Oh yeah,
I never got to that one.
Yeah, exactly. But my dad was wary of my musical leanings because I had failed efforts with the cello and with the percussion kit. So when I wanted to play guitar, he's like, no.
Right.
And I said, no. I borrowed a guitar from this gal up the street, learned a couple of chords, and he had a client of his that was in a society band, who played a little banjo, played guitar, played mandolin, played bass, did whatever needed to be done. And so my dad set me up with lessons with this guy and said, the moment he's not prepared, this all ends. And a couple of months later, he came back and goes, I can't teach him anymore, George. And so then I was like, see, Dad, I told you. So then it went from there. But I had that acoustic guitar. Remember those frat pickups?
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
So I would get this frat because I wanted to electrify
like the Buffalo nickel that you'd put on?
Or some kind of beeswax and pop it on the thing. But I'd go out of that thing and I would go into my tape deck. And then I would crank the tape deck, and it would get all distorted. It would sound, that's right when Rust Never Sleeps came out, and New Young thing, and I would do that opening riff, and it sounded just like complete cacophonous hell. But that was my way of electrifying my acoustic. And then I got of course, a Lotus Les Paul through a PV Rage amplifier.
And a PV Classic.
Yes.
That was my first really good guitar amplifier.
Yes, Pavé, French amplification.
Pavé.
remember, I don't know if you guys ever been to the Podium. It's not there anymore, but it was originally one of the boutique guitar shops in Dinkytown, right off the University of Minnesota campus. And actually, Chris Webber, the guy that owned it, when Dylan came back to town in '74 to do Blood on the Tracks, he was looking for a specific Martin guitar that Chris had. So that's kind of through Chris, that guitar, that's kind of how all those local guys ended up playing on that record, was the connections through Chris. But my Podium story, you know, I was thinking when Dave was talking about the, you know, the cheap guitars to the $60,000 ones. I went in there 4 or 5 years ago, and there's this beautiful new Gibson J45, brown sunburst, just gorgeous. And I played it, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I said, well, how much is it? And they go, $5,200. And I said, you know what? I said, I don't play guitars that are worth more than the car that I
yeah. I mean, you know, it's interesting because I did a lot of sessions in Nashville, like 2000, 2010, and I worked with a guy named Brian Sutton a lot, who to me is like the best younger bluegrass player out there, who also did a lot of sessions, and he could go way beyond bluegrass, but he is a boss hog. And what I noticed was all his guitars were just like this one that I bought. They were like, had been retopped. They'd been, you know, the bracing had been moved inside. They were rode hard, put up wet. And that made a real impression on me. And especially when you're talking about acoustic instruments, the more they've been played and vibrated, and, you know, and dried out, you know, like they were kept in somebody's attic. Well, if you can get the neck back in shape, the wood is just like the lacquer's, you know, crystallized and falling off. And I'm like, I watched, you know, every guitar he played. He could have played anything because, you know, this guy's doing sessions all day long. They're making really good money, but they were always rode hard and put up wet. And also, when I moved to Austin,
what year was that?
With Brian?
No, when did you move to Austin?
I moved to Austin in '83.
Okay.
I was a mere pup, and there was a guy
just
there.
Just a kid with a dream.
A kid with a dream and no debt, and a Honda Civic. And it was I met a guy there named Danny Thorpe. He worked at a music store, Ray Hennig's Heart of Texas Music.
Smiling Ray.
And you know, I had like an Alvarez acoustic or something, but I needed an acoustic, and he talked me into. He goes, man, you need this guitar, and it was a Harmony Sovereign, and to this day, that guitar sounds like unbelievable. And I paid $50 for it, and so it's just. Guitars are funny. Yeah. I mean, there's a video on the web right now of a guy, I can't remember his name, Mark somebody, playing She's Leaving Home on a Teisco.
Oh, I saw that.
It's had about, like, you know, 5 million views or 10 million views. And it's just like, it's so good, it's ridiculous. He's in an open tuning. And it's like, it's luck of the draw, you know? I mean, you can go through, I don't want to name any names, but you go to a high-end guitar company and you play 10 of one model, and there's going to be 1 or 2 that are going to just be blow you away, and the other ones are all going to be good, but they're not, you know. So the $50 Harmony Sovereign is a lesson in, you know, hey man, you can find these guitars out there that are really cheap, but they're old, they've been played, the wood's dried out, it's not green, it's not moving, whatever works.
When you moved to Austin in '83, man, Stevie Ray. My sister lived down there, so I remember going down Christmas in 1983. In fact, I saw an amazing show with Billy Joe Shaver with his son Eddie at the Continental. There was maybe 4 people there. The school was out. But, my God, what a beautiful time to be in Austin with the music. Tell us about just some of the guitar players that you were rubbing shoulders with when you moved to town.
Well, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was magic, you know, because it hadn't really been discovered yet, and there were half as many people there. And within 2 weeks I was playing with Lucinda Williams. And then she added another guitar player named Derek O'Brien, who is one of the best the most underrated and not that well known blues guitar players that I know. I mean, it's a textbook of every. When it's like blues and bluegrass are similar in that you hear it. Even if you're a reasonably accomplished musician, you hear it and you think it's simple music. But when you really get around guys that are great, and you get inside it, you realize there's a lot more going on to really do it right. So anyway, I met Derek. Then Derek got me in Lou Ann Barton's band, and then I can go to Antone's for free every night. Right. So this was kind of like what I consider to be the golden era of
Back
Antone's.
when they were on Guadalupe.
They were on Guadalupe, and Clifford was bringing in everybody to play with the house band. And so one week it would be Hubert Sumlin, the next week it would be Jimmy Rogers, then it would be Buddy Guy, then it would be Otis Rush, then Albert Collins, and they'd be playing 5-6 nights a week with the house band, which could play anything. They knew all the songs. The guys that came down loved it. Clifford took great care of them. I got in free every night, and I went every night. Literally every night. And I would go and absorb it and occasionally get to sit in. I had to really earn my stripes with Clifford. I was so young, and I didn't play as traditional as he would prefer, but I was in Lou Ann's band, and Lou Ann was not taking no for an answer. He's in my band.